On August 19th, Chinese President Xi Jinping welcomed Vietnam's Communist Party General Secretary and President To Lam at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing. This was Xi's first public appearance in 3 weeks, following his meetings with the President of Timor-Leste and the Prime Minister of Italy in late July. During his absence from the state media, various rumors spread online, sparking speculation about his whereabouts. Observant viewers noticed that during the welcome ceremony, which was broadcast exclusively by CCTV, the entire event was filmed using long-distance shots. The camera focused on wide views of the military band, with no close-ups of either leader and barely a glimpse of their figures. However, in footage shown by Vietnamese media, close-up shots of Xi Jinping revealed a slightly swollen appearance, hinting at potential health issues. In an authoritarian country like China, whenever the top leader shows signs of unusual behavior, it often stirs discussions among the people, sometimes with a sense of anticipation for significant changes. Because of this, the health of the Chinese leadership is treated as a state secret, and people are left to piece together clues from official reports or speculate based on rumors. The rumors about Xi Jinping having a stroke have been circulating for some time, but it's difficult to confirm the truth. Xi's appearance to welcome Su Lin is being seen as an official attempt to dispel these rumors. However, some people have boldly speculated that the person who appeared might be a stand-in who closely resembles Xi. Based on various sources, it seems clear that Xi has some health issues, though the extent of these problems is still unknown. A leader of the 1989 Tiananmen movement recently commented that, regardless of whether the rumors are true, they serve as a way for people to express their dissatisfaction. This, in turn, reflects public opinion and should be taken seriously by the outside world. Analysts believe that there are two main reasons why people are so concerned about whether Xi Jinping is still able to govern. First, Xi has not designated a successor, so there is uncertainty about who would take over if a power vacuum were to occur. This could lead to fierce power struggles among the top levels of the Chinese Communist Party. Second, if the regime becomes unstable, China could face major changes, especially given the unpredictable internal situation. Russia is stuck in a quagmire of war, unable to extricate itself, while countries like Iran and North Korea are attempting to start conflicts. Meanwhile, China's close allies, such as Bangladesh, Venezuela, Hamas, Pakistan, and Myanmar, are all experiencing intense turmoil. Many Chinese people who are hoping for a significant change in China are expressing their feelings in various ways, wishing for their rumors about Xi Jinping to come true and hoping that he soon steps down. A well-known Chinese entrepreneur who has been living in exile for many years posted a short poem online a week ago, saying, "Heaven has driven away the demons, the world celebrates, we can return home, and society will head towards light." As the author explained, this was a way to test the waters and see how the Chinese authorities would react. The poem spread widely online, and many exiled Chinese people have said that it reflects their own desire to return home. The sudden disappearance of Xi Jinping has sparked significant attention from scholars regarding China's political landscape, especially among Taiwanese scholars. On August 14th, Taiwan's Liberty Times published an article by Liao Minghui analyzing potential successors to Xi Jinping. According to Liao, Xi, who is now 71 years old, has seen increasing concerns about his health as he ages. Recent media reports about rumors of Xi suffering a stroke highlight what Liao calls a gray rhino event, an obvious and highly probable event that is ignored. Despite eliminating all potential rivals, Xi has not clearly designated a successor. While China avoids discussing the topic of Xi's successor publicly, Xi's concentration of power has made the internal political environment of the Chinese Communist Party more complex, turning Xi himself into the biggest gray rhino risk in China. If a power vacuum were to occur, it could trigger serious political turmoil. Neil Thomas, a researcher at the Asia Society's China Analysis Center, began studying the topic of Xi Jinping's succession as early as March of this year. In his article titled "Xi Jinping's Succession Dilemma," he points out that if Xi were suddenly to leave office, whether due to illness, death, or resignation, there is no clear procedure in place, which could result in a chaotic power transition. The article analyzes several possible succession scenarios, including voluntary resignation, an elite leadership rebellion, a military coup, or sudden illness. with each scenario carrying its own potential outcomes. The article also notes that speculation about Xi's successor has long been a subject of interest. Among the current members of the Politburo Standing Committee, Premier Li Qiang and First Secretary of the Secretariat of the Communist Party, Cai Qi, are considered potential candidates to succeed Xi. The Chinese Communist Party's power transition doesn't follow a Western-style democratic system, but it does have a unique practice called successor designation across generations. For example, Deng Xiaoping designated Hu Jintao and Wen Jiabao as successors after Jiang Zemin. Jiang Zemin, in turn, designated Xi Jinping and Li Keqiang as successors after Hu Jintao, and Hu Jintao designated Sun Zhengcai and Hu Chunhua as potential leaders to follow Xi Jinping. The idea behind the system was to avoid direct power entanglements between the current and next generations, which reduced the chances of corruption at the highest levels of the party. However, after Xi Jinping came to power, he did not intend to step down after 2 terms, and as a result, these 2 rising political stars, handpicked by Hu Jintao, became political casualties. In July 2017, Sun Zhengcai, who had previously pledged his loyalty to Xi Jinping, was suddenly removed from his position. He was accused of attempting to seize control of the Communist Party. A year later, a Tianjin court announced that Sun had been sentenced to life in prison on charges of bribery. In 2022, as Xi Jinping prepared for a 3rd term in office, although he did not imprison his originally designated successor, Hu Chunhua, he was still ruthlessly pushed out of the Communist Party's leadership. This move sparked discontent among many officials who were frustrated but unable to voice their grievances openly. With no clear consensus on party leadership succession, any potential issue with Xi Jinping could create significant uncertainty at the top levels of the party. Rumors online have even suggested that there have been signs of sudden military movements, with tanks reportedly appearing on the streets of a city in Jiangsu. At the same time, the international turmoil has added to the anxiety felt by the Chinese authorities. Nearly 2.5 years into Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Moscow has not only failed to capture Kiev, but has recently faced a counteroffensive from Ukrainian forces that has reached Russian territory. Ukraine claims to have taken control of over 1,000 square kilometers, 390 square miles of land in Russia's Kursk region. This is considered the largest attack on Russia since World War II, catching the Kremlin off guard. Public opinion suggests that the Russian military's defense against Ukraine's offensive is just as poorly executed as their initial invasion, showing little of what one would expect from the world's 2nd-largest military power. Reports indicate that it wasn't until the 2nd day after Ukrainian forces entered Russia that Putin learned the border had been breached. Putin's severe setbacks in this war may have gone beyond what the Chinese authorities, who have pledged unlimited cooperation with Russia, had anticipated. China is now quietly watching the situation unfold. Since July this year, Bangladesh has experienced a strong wave of anti-government protests. The country's leader, Sheikh Hasina, who has long been a close ally of China, visited Beijing in early July, where she was received by Xi Jinping. During her visit, Beijing promised $5 billion in aid to help the authoritarian leader navigate her crisis. However, despite China's support, it could not prevent Bangladesh from moving towards democracy. On August 5th, amidst widespread public protests, the Bangladeshi government was brought to a standstill, and 77-year-old Hasina fled to India, ending her 15-year rule. The unrest led to at least 432 deaths, marking one of the deadliest events in Bangladesh's history. On August 8th, the United States announced that it would work with Bangladesh's new interim government to help the South Asian country build a democratic future following weeks of protests. This development signifies that in the geopolitical contest over Bangladesh, China's decade-long influence, backed by significant investments from Xi Jinping, has effectively evaporated in an instant. The Venezuelan government has been a trusted ally of China. Last September, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro visited Beijing, where Xi Jinping emphasized that China and Venezuela have formed a close bond of mutual support amid international changes. However, Maduro, who had been in power since 2013 as an authoritarian leader, recently faced strong protests from Venezuelans during the presidential election, as people hope to oust him through the ballot box. On July 29th, Venezuela's election authorities announced that President Nicolás Maduro won the election with 51% of the vote, defeating the opposition candidate Edmundo González. who received 44%. The opposition not only disputed the official election results, but also claimed that their candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, won the election with 70% of the vote, stating that they had data to back up their claim. Protests erupted across Venezuela as people demonstrated against what they called President Maduro's stolen election. According to Chinese media reports, after Maduro declared his re-election, he immediately sought assistance from China and Russia, both of which responded positively. China, Russia, and Cuba expressed their support for Maduro's victory. However, the opposition's claims received backing from the US, Europe, and several Latin American countries. Dozens of nations from the Americas, Africa, Europe, and the European Union jointly issued a statement demanding that Nicolas Maduro's government immediately release the original voting records from the election and conduct an impartial and independent review. The United States was the first country to officially recognize opposition candidate Edmundo Gonzalez as the winner of the election. Reports indicate that since the election, anti-authoritarian protests have resulted in dozens of deaths and thousands of arrests. Protesters have called on the security forces to side with justice and refrain from shooting at the demonstrators. The U.S. government has accused the Venezuelan government of serious human rights violations, including the suppression of the opposition, illegal detentions, torture, and the persecution of political dissidents. Venezuela's security forces and pro-government militias have also been accused of using excessive force against civilians. In response, the United States has announced sanctions against Venezuela. The sanctions imposed by the United States include freezing the assets of government officials, restricting financial transactions, and implementing widespread sanctions on Venezuela's oil industry. The U.S. hopes that these measures will pressure the Venezuelan government to pursue political reforms and restore democratic order. Public opinion suggests that if Maduro continues to use repression to maintain his authoritarian rule, he will likely face even harsher sanctions from the U.S. and European countries. In South Asia, Pakistan, which previously received billions of dollars in aid from the United States, faced condemnation for secretly harboring multiple terrorist organizations. As a result, Pakistan shifted its focus towards China. The Pakistani government has publicly stated that it places absolute trust in the Chinese authorities. In April 2015, Xi Jinping visited Pakistan, where the two countries signed a joint declaration to establish an all-weather strategic cooperative partnership and officially launched the Belt and Road Initiative. China's investments in Pakistan have now reached approximately $60 billion. It is said that currently there are tens of thousands of Chinese workers in Pakistan. This June, Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif made a 5-day visit to China, where he was received by Xi Jinping. Pakistan's Information Minister Ataullah Tarar called the visit extremely successful and historic during a press conference. However, China's substantial investments have not garnered widespread support from the Pakistani public. Armed violence targeting large Chinese-funded projects has erupted across Pakistan. Reports indicate that these attacks have endangered the safety of Chinese workers and threatened the infrastructure, energy, and trade projects that are crucial for sustaining Pakistan's crisis-ridden economy. In July of this year, as part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, a new international airport funded by China in the important port city of Gwadar, located in Pakistan's Balochistan province, is nearing completion. While the completion of this new airport is expected to improve local infrastructure and stimulate economic growth, the Baloch people in Balochistan have launched large-scale protests, accusing the Pakistani government of unfairly exploiting their natural resources. The Baloch Yajeti Committee, a civil rights organization fighting for the political and socio-economic rights of the Baloch people, has been at the forefront of these protests. Maran Baloch, the leader of the committee, stated that China and other investors are plundering local resources without bringing any benefits to the local population. Political analyst Malik Sharaj Akbar told Deutsche Welle that China has not adequately considered the tensions between the Baloch people in Gwadar and the Pakistani government. As a result, China has become entangled in the conflict between the Baloch and Islamabad. Reports indicate that the protests organized by the Baloch Yajeti Committee have largely been aimed at opposing Beijing and Islamabad's policies regarding Gwadar. Protesters also pointed out that China once promised to turn Gwadar into another Shenzhen, Hong Kong, or Dubai, but 10 years after the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor (CPEC) was launched, these promises have yet to be fulfilled. On October 7th of last year, Hamas militants, under the planning of Hamas Ismail Haniyeh and others, launched a surprise attack on Israel, killing innocent civilians. The brutal assault resulted in at least 300 deaths and over 1,500 injuries, including 3 Chinese nationals among the victims. The attack triggered Israel's retaliation, reigniting conflict in the Middle East. Despite China's claim to maintain a neutral stance, asserting that both Israel and Hamas are its friends, China has clearly aligned itself with Hamas in the Israel-Hamas conflict. To date, China has not condemned Hamas for the brutal killings, even though Chinese nationals were among the victims. In an effort to unite various Palestinian factions and preserve the remaining power of Hamas, while also maintaining China's image as a peace broker in the Middle East, Chinese authorities quickly stepped in to mediate. On July 23rd, under the mediation of Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, representatives from Hamas and Fatah met in Beijing, where they reconciled and signed the Beijing Declaration on Ending Division and Strengthening Palestinian National Unity. China's efforts did not change the fate of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh. In the early hours of July 31st, the 62-year-old Haniyeh was killed in a bombing while he slept. This attack occurred just a day after he had attended the inauguration of Iran's new president, Masoud Pezeshkian. The Chinese government issued a strong condemnation of the attack, and the level of their outrage was evident. Following Haniyeh's death, Hamas appointed Yahya Sinwar as the new political leader. Sinwar, one of the masterminds behind attacks on Israel, has long been regarded as one of the most influential leaders of the militant group. Despite his significant power, Sinwar spends much of his time hiding in tunnels in Gaza. Reports suggest that Yahya Sinwar holds a hardline stance and is against reaching a ceasefire agreement with Israel. He intends to prolong the war in Gaza, using the lives of innocent civilians as a way to provoke global condemnation of Israel's military actions. Recently, Israeli Foreign Minister Israel Katz posted on social media saying, "This is yet another compelling reason to swiftly eliminate him and wipe this vile organization off the face of the earth." Chinese netizens, when discussing Sinwar's background, urged their government not to get involved further. One netizen remarked, "Always doing useless things. Why unite terrorists? Sinwar will disappear soon." Amid a series of international upheavals, China's influence appears to be diminishing, and more Chinese people are beginning to see hope for democracy. One netizen commented, "Xi Jinping seems to have come back to life, but the state of the Chinese Communist Party is like his health, terminally ill."